Valak, Malthus, Annabelle doll. Bathsheba Sherman, the crooked man, the ferryman, the occultist, the bride. Here is the claim. The Conjuring universe is not a pile of hauntings. It is a command structure. The cleanest tell is that saying the true name Valak collapses its illusion and forces it back, which only works when a power sits above its disguises.
I will fool the shepherds.
Valak. The verdict is simple. This is the apex manipulator. The face is a painted nun that walks, the signature repeats in abbey halls, and the attack plan is to infiltrate vision before it ever touches the room. The pressure it applies is jurisdiction. Families fracture, investigators argue, and a house becomes a stage where attention is pulled like a thread until the center gives. Under the hood, it runs on names, symbols, and vows. It plants a sigil, provokes a prayer, then turns the answer into a knife. A counter-reading says the nun is only a mask. That is the point. The mask is the weapon because minds submit to what they already fear. Versus any other entity, Valak delegates. It recruits proxies, reroutes grief, and keeps its hands off the glass. Impact. Once you pin Valak to the top, every lesser horror snaps into a supply chain. Button. If there is a crown here, it wears a veil. Malthus. The verdict is that this thing is not a mascot for a doll. It is a binder that wants occupancy. The clearest tell is that it begs to be invited rather than smashed, which means the rules require consent before takeover. The pressure is proximity. A nursery becomes a battery, and a hallway shrinks into a funnel where footsteps sound like a decision. Mechanically, it runs a three-step cycle. Infestation primes the house, oppression hunts the weak point, and possession caches the signature when someone breaks. A counter-reading says it is just an echo. Then explain why the activity surges only after sympathy is granted, and why the house calms when permission is revoked. Versus Valak, Malthus is a middle manager. It does not expand the map. It consolidates a room. Impact. If you treat it as a binder, you stop arguing over furniture and start policing what the heart signs. Button. The demon does not need a door when a yes will do. Annabelle doll. The verdict is that the doll is not the evil. It is an anchor that concentrates it. The clean detail is that the object sits still while everything around it moves, which is what anchors are built to do. The pressure is museum gravity. The more warnings around the glass, the more attention the anchor receives, and attention is a conductor. Under the hood, anchors store charge. Move the doll and wires in the walls reroute. Leave the doll and the room grows heavy until any knock becomes a sermon. A counter-reading says containment solves it. Containment buys time when a contract already exists. Glass is not mercy. Versus the ferryman's coins, this anchor is portable. It travels inside a case like a shrine on wheels. Impact. Treat anchors like live wires that power an entire grid of lesser events. Button. If the map has pins, this one holds the string. Bathsheba Sherman. The verdict is that Bathsheba functions as a patron welded to land and blood. The best detail is a house claim that forces a mother against her child, an oath inverted against its own role. The pressure is inheritance. A deed changes hands while the hallways refuse the new names. The stairs creak like a ritual timekeeper, and 3 in the morning becomes a business hour. Mechanically, it binds a curse to thresholds and rolls. Cross the basement door and you enter the contract. Stand under the tree and you stand inside the verdict. A counter-reading says this is a human ghost rather than a demon. The structure still holds. A patron spirit can act like a local manager inside the same economy of vows and forfeits. Versus Malthus the binder, Bathsheba is geographic rather than portable. Here, the land is the vessel. Impact. You cannot out-muscle a house that believes you are trespassing. You out-contract it. Button. If your foundation is a signature, breaking the lease becomes the exorcism. The crooked man. The verdict is that this figure is a fear proxy, a puppet that walks so a hidden hand can touch. The strongest tell is that it arrives through a nursery rhyme and moves like hinges rather than muscle. The pressure is distraction. A toy dog clicks into a nightmare shape while the larger will writes its claim in the blind spot. Mechanically, proxies are bandwidth. They keep a mind occupied, harvest panic, and hand those watts up the ladder to powers that dislike being seen. A counter reading says the crooked one stands alone. A proxy that can stand on its own legs is still a proxy if its reason to exist is diversion. Versus the ferryman, the crooked man feeds on rhythm and rhyme rather than currency and passage. Impact. If you can name the puppet, look for the puppeteer. Button. The crooked line points straight back to the spear behind it. The ferryman. The verdict is that this is a collector, not a king. Coins appear where eyes should rest, rooms dim into corridors, and a crossing is implied whether you asked for water or not. The pressure is debt. A toll is declared, and someone in the house is marked as the payment method. Under the hood, the collector reads for rituals already present in the room and repurposes them. A coin on a photo becomes a key. A whisper becomes a price. A counter reading says, this is only a museum artifact given life by proximity, which makes the point. Proximity is a ladder and the collector climbs it like a hired specialist. Versus the Annabelle anchor, this is field work. It arrives when the right price is laid out. Impact. When coins turn up, someone is telling you the bill is due. Button. If metal smiles in the dark, you are already at the river. The Occultist. The verdict is that a human can serve as a conduit who wires a network for something worse. The crisp detail is the totem hidden where love will find it, because guilt is the fastest courier. The pressure is logistics. A single operator can seed 3 homes, split law enforcement, and schedule deaths that look like despair. Mechanically, a conduit builds an inverted chapel out of tunnels and names, then lets the engine beyond draw current through it. The counterview says the human is the true villain, and the thing beyond is secondary. The system answers otherwise. Without the engine, the totems are wood. Without the totems, the engine has no traction. Versus Valak, the conduit is an engineer rather than a sovereign. Versus Malthus, a conduit writes consent by trick instead of beg. Impact. As soon as you find a totem, you are reading a map, and you can walk it backward to the hand that planted it. Button. Break the network, and the signal dies. The bride. The verdict is that this is a cursed garment that acts like a wearable anchor with a possession trigger. The sharp detail is a dress that remains spotless after blood, which tells you the fabric is not absorbing guilt, but erasing evidence to invite the next wearer. The pressure is ritual. From fitting to aisle to kiss, the script writes itself, and the dress hijacks it by swapping love for rage at the last step. Mechanically, it is a loop. The dress pulls a host, incites a strike, resets the surface, and waits. A counter reading says it is only folklore imported into a museum. Folklore is a storage format, not a dismissal. Versus the Annabelle anchor, the dress requires the body to complete the circuit. Impact. You cannot argue with a loop. You interrupt it. Button. Take away the script, and the dress loses its lines. Vignette. A night guard leans on a glass case and tells himself a doll cannot look back. The hum of the building drops a note, and the case fogs from the inside as if something in there is breathing slower than the room. Vignette. A mother finds a carved figure under a kitchen shelf wrapped in twine and something dark. She does not scream. She holds it over the trash, then stops, because a voice that sounds like her own tells her to keep it for luck. Do not glamorize harm. Focus on craft, logic, and psychology. Here is the pattern interrupt. If this is a hierarchy, then it tells you where to cut first. Break consent before you throw holy water. Starve the anchor before you chase shadows. Isolate the proxy so the puppeteer has to step into view. Deny the collector by refusing the toll. Unmask the conduit, and the network collapses. Only then do you speak the name of the apex and force it to face you without costumes. Escalation lands here. Apex manipulator at the top. Below it, binders and patrons that secure bodies and land. Below them, anchors that hold charge, proxies that split attention, collectors that harvest, and human conduits that wire it all together. Once you draw that ladder, chaos turns into logistics. Final verdict. The Conjuring universe looks random until you try to run it like a business. Then every scare balances a ledger. Learn the roles, pull the right rung, and the ceiling above it falls. Button. You can rank them if you want, but the smarter move is to map the ladder and kick until the crown hits the floor.